Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderEd, Blender HD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Tuesday, November 8th, and we have a kind of special show today. Kind of a little bit of special show. A lot of times we do toss-up Tuesdays. We just send it over to the YouTube chat. I see you people in the YouTube chat. I see Devin's even in here, right? He's producing, slumming with us in the morning. Good morning, Wataz, DFS Voodoo, Suki Singh, DFIC, Bart B, Kickstart, Dave Clark. Good morning. Give me those thumbs. You know how much I like the like button. Give me the like button, the thumbs up button, the subscribe button, the notification bell, right? If you want to hit that. Comment, like, subscribe, press buttons, do whatever the hell you want, right? Do that. Normally, on Tuesdays, especially today, there's no NBA today. There's no sports today. I mean, I think maybe there's NHL. There's not much going on today when it comes to DFS, but there is something going on today. It's the election day. It's election day. It's election day. It's one of my favorite days of the year. It's one of my favorite days every 2 years, right? Maybe not on the off years as much, but the presidential and midterm elections. The first message is go out and vote. I'm not going to give you a message of who to vote for. Just go out and vote. Okay? The more people to vote, that better. Okay, so just go out. I don't care if you fill in, you don't even know anyone, just highlight stuff and whatever. Just same thing with the thumbs. Just click on everything, right? And just put it in. Do your civic duty, whatever talking point I would give you. So go out and vote. So after this show, go to your polls, vote for whoever you want, right? You know what I mean? Play whoever you want, vote for whoever you want. Doesn't matter to me. It does matter to me, but the more people that vote, the better. Okay? No, Dave Clark, we don't have NBA games spaced 15 minutes apart yesterday. I didn't even play DFS yesterday. I made money on props. I made like $2,000 on props. So I'm good. I was good yesterday, but I wasn't going to deal with the 15 minute every starting lineup every 15 minutes. And is Giannis going to play? Is Trae Young going to play? Is this guy going to play? Is that guy going to play? Damian Lillard, is Anthony Simons going to play? I mean, no. Oh, I don't mind if they all come in at like little windows, like 4 games here, 4 games there, 5 games there. Like I could deal with that, with updating projections and everything, but not every 15 minutes. Get the hell out of here. So I didn't play yesterday. But on today, what I like doing is I like betting. I like betting on politics, right? Not only do I go out and vote, and obviously, I'm rooting for a certain side. But I've been following presidential and midterm elections since 2000, right? Since the Florida presidential election with Gore and Bush, whatever. And typically on these days, I watch the news, the cable news or whatever. And most of the stuff that you see on cable news is horrible. Okay, most of whatever you're watching on cable news, these people either don't know what they're talking about, or they have information that's like 90 minutes old, right? They're talking about, they're not calling races that should be called. They're saying, oh, is this guy gonna whatever? Like we already have information. We already have exit polling. We already have tons of stuff in. Then once they go to the decision desk, then maybe they could get the stuff sorted out. But it's ripe for betting because, as noted in the 2020 election, I consider it my biggest financial miss of my entire lifetime. I made money on the 2020 presidential election. I made 15,000, and I could have made 15 million. I mean, maybe not 15 million. I mean, I would have bet 80+% of my bankroll, like of my DFS bankroll. If I did that, I would have probably 5x'd my money, right? Easily on that election, and I didn't take advantage of it, but not this time. So I made sure to be a little bit have some funds available. Not in the United States markets. Remember, U.S. books. You can't bet on politics on regulated legal U.S. books. But that if you want to, there are other markets you could privately, right? They're private bets amongst people. You could find people that are willing to take your action. So I maybe wanted to talk a little bit about that, right? Bart B says, please tell me the Dems are going to crush. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that. I think it's going to be closer than people think. Okay. That's why I even brought up that I just did the 270 to win. I didn't want to get partisan, right? If there are, that site is is that's a liberal site. That's a conservative site. It's like 2270 to win. It's just like some bare basic site that shows a map and whatever like that. But the key here is not. I mean, the markets that are available that you could bet on or bet with other people. Like I said, you feel free to if you have trusted sources that you have no problem if you get money around the world, whatever. You could make bets. And the one thing that the best times to bet are after the polls close, because the biggest arbitrage opportunities are when certain information comes in and people don't understand the dynamics of how elections are counted, right? They don't understand that. Like we saw that in 2020. So like I tweeted this before. I said I'm interested to see what the Pennsylvania Senate market looks like at like 9 o'clock tonight or at 9:30 Eastern time tonight, because the polls will close in Pennsylvania at 8 o'clock, I believe. The thing in Pennsylvania, so you have to understand that every state runs their elections differently. It's not nationally. We don't have a national standard of elections, so every state runs their elections differently. Okay, in Pennsylvania is one of the only states in the country, typically, because we have mail-in ballots now, and mail-in ballots have been used for decades. Okay, most states, when they get mail-in ballots, which you could mail in 6 weeks ago even, they will start counting them like the day of, like 6 a.m. Like once the election officials come in the morning to open up the polls, like they will be in the back counting the mail-in ballots already. So most times, by the time the polls close, depending on the size and how many mail-in ballots there are, most of those mail-in ballots will have been run through the machines already, right? So you're going to get that when the news comes up and says, the polls just closed, but hey, we have results in already. We have 17% of the whatever, like that. Those are mail-in ballots, right? They may not be the absentee ballots. Sometimes a lot of states, the absentee ballots are counted like even like days later, because there may only be like less than 1% of absentee ballots. In Pennsylvania, however, they're not allowed to count the mail-in ballots until the polls close. Now, that's something that was put in place by a Republican majority. So it's not something that Pennsylvania typically would have done, but that was changed. Maybe 6 or 8 years ago or something. So what's going to happen when you see the results coming out of Pennsylvania is that they're only going to start. You're only going to see the in-person voting. Now, the mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania typically lean 2-1 Democrat, around there. Something like 66%, 68% Democrat. Those aren't going to only start being counted, right? Like that may be like 20% of the votes. And they're not going to be started to count until 8 o'clock at night. So the early returns that you see in Pennsylvania are going to be heavily skewed towards in-person voting, which typically leans slightly, like maybe 55-45 for Republicans. So these returns are going to come in, and you're going to watch TV, and it's going to look like Dr. Oz is 62% of the vote, right? 58% of the vote, like something like that. It's going to look like Oz, like, oh, okay, he's winning this. And you can also see that a lot of the count in Philadelphia is because obviously it's a very populous area. It's going to take some time for some of those precincts to count a lot of ballots. Same for the Pittsburgh area. Okay, so you're going to get a lot of the rural stuff in Pennsylvania first. And what ends up happening, like we saw in 2020 with the Trump Biden election, is that it looks like, oh well, Pennsylvania is a swing state presidentially, and if Pennsylvania goes red, typically that Arizona goes red, and then next thing you know, you have a Republican president. That the betting markets on Trump were just like, it got to minus 300, minus 350, without people realizing that these mail-in votes, especially we had COVID in 2020, so there were a lot more mail-in ballots than normal. That once they start counting the mail-in ballots, that lead's going to significantly come down. So I'm interested in seeing what the betting market looks like 9:30-ish in Pennsylvania. If people react this in a similar fashion, I don't think it's going to be as drastic of a reaction as it was 2 years ago. And that's when I started, like, I started betting the farm on Biden, right? Because the odds were just getting way out of hand, right? Even if Trump was the favorite right there, like, it's just like there's no reason Biden should be plus 350, right? Based on just basically that information. The same thing happened in Florida in 2020 with the southern Florida vote, because the majority of southern Florida, like, the Republicans have had inroads on Latino voters in South Florida. So that was like a correlation of, like, what's Nevada going to look like, what's Texas going to look like states that have more of a minority population, and people overreacted to that as well. So, like, that caused all this ripple effect in the betting market. So I'm hoping once polls start to close that people start overreacting again. If you have any questions about any of this, or a political betting or anything like that, feel free to let me know. I know this is a DFS pregame show, but we do talk. I mean, this is how to define edges, We talk about prop betting. We talk about a lot of stuff like that. And like I said, I'm not talking politics as far as policy or who to win. I'm like, this is purely from a money-making standpoint, right? Right. I'm rooting for certain outcomes. But if I don't get my outcome, can I at least make some money on it? Like, okay, you could say what you want about the ethics of that. Let's see. Dave Clark says, I'm in Pennsylvania. We like to make things take longer than they need to. Yes, especially driving through the state. You make driving through the state way. Like, I'm from New York, and I've driven through Pennsylvania lengthwise tons of times. It seems like it never ends, right? You're on 76, and you're constantly going through mountains. Like, it's just 76, and it's like, 28 miles till the next, like, rest area, the whatever. And it's like, does this ever end? Does it ever end? Okay, so how could you take advantage of, like, overreactions, and understanding correlation will help you very much. Because remember, we live in a very large country. We have 3 time zones. So the polls won't close in the West Coast until like 3 hours after they close on the East Coast. But there are correlations between the states and certain districts in the East Coast that could predict other things in the West Coast. So we have very close elections here in certain states, right? So we have the Pennsylvania Senate election, right? And technically the governorship, although I think Shapiro is going to win. I think if they had a better candidate than Mastriano, that Oz would win the Senate. Just that Mastriano is such a bad candidate that people are almost voting against him. We're gonna have to look at the Pennsylvania, obviously Georgia. Georgia's probably one of the closest ones between Warnock and Walker. Wisconsin is Ron Johnson's going to win Wisconsin. It just depends on by how much, right? The same thing in Ohio. J.D. Vance is going to beat Tim Ryan by how much? So the key issue is not like, well, do I see if Ryan wins or Vance wins? Like, no, it's more of the what is the discrepancy, and what does that discrepancy in certain districts can tell you about Nevada and Arizona, because they're closer. I think Kelly's more like Kelly's the favorite to beat Masters. But this Cortez Masto and Laxalt a Senate race is very close also, okay? And they have the correlation between Nevada and Arizona to certain districts in the East Coast is very strong, okay? So the first thing we're going to see when polls close, the first betting opportunity is going to be looking at the early returns from New Hampshire, okay? Where Maggie Hassan is trying to keep her seat against Bolduc. They had a late primary. So like I think this race would lean actually a little bit more Republican if they had a little bit more campaign time. But Hassan is favored to keep her seat, but by how I think it's by how much. If you see that Southern New Hampshire results are coming in and Hassan is barely keeping a lead there. Remember, Southern New Hampshire is closer to like the Boston market, so it's gonna lean blue more, but it's still kind of purplish, right? Northern New Hampshire is gonna be much more red, but Southern New Hampshire. So if you see Hassan with like a 53-47 in some of these southern, like Portsmouth, Salem level kind of districts, that doesn't bode well for like Georgia. That doesn't bode well for Nevada. Like if New Hampshire is more like 57-43. Then that's more in line for closer wins for Democrats in like Nevada and Georgia and those types of races, right? It may be a little bit in Arizona. So that's the first key race to look for. Is like how much is Hassan leading? But now if Baldock is if tons of precincts are being counted in southern New Hampshire and Baldock is actually ahead, that bodes very poorly for the Democrats. So if you see that, you should probably like even though it'll be minus money on the Republicans to take the Senate, like that number is just going to start going up. Okay, I think currently right now, I think there's value currently in I'm looking at now. This is obviously offshore. The value right now to me is in the House and Senate control market of Republican House and Democratic Senate. Like I'm seeing like plus 300, plus 350, because I think there's almost no chance that the Democrats keep the House. It's just a matter of by how much. Is it going to be plus 12? Is it going to be plus 20? Is it going to be plus 32? But it's going to be something like that. I don't know if there's a market for the plus by how many seats. I haven't seen one, but I'd be more inclined to look something like that. But I think there's a better than 3-1 chance that the Democrats still maintain control of the Senate while losing the House. Okay, because there are a lot of close races here. I also think there isn't a market. I don't see a market for it of how many split ticket wins there are. So between the governorship and the Senate, because we have like Pennsylvania, for instance, Fetterman, like the Senate race is Fetterman Oz, and the governorship race is Shapiro Mastriano. I think it's better than even money that Shapiro wins the governorship and Fetterman wins the Senate, right? Like it's a split like that. Very similar to Georgia. Like Kemp's going to beat Abrams for the governorship, but I think Warnock could eke out Walker for the Senate. And the same thing applies in Arizona, where who's the Arizona governor? Whoever the governor is, I forgot, is going to win. And maybe Masters wins the Senate. Like that, there's a lot of splits. Wisconsin, like Evers wins the governorship, but Johnson wins the Senate. It's like if there's a market for some type of split ticket, like I mean, obviously, like in the key races, because it's quite like can Hochul lose in New York for the governorship? I mean, Schumer's going to win, obviously, in the Senate. I mean, that's possible. If Zedlin wins, I mean, it's going to be a very bad day for the Democrats. So like that's what I'd be looking for. So like the first race to look for is New Hampshire. Then the second thing to look for, okay, is going to be a weird one. Okay, it's going to be a very weird one. Is Virginia. Okay, now Virginia, there's nothing really up there. There's congressional seats up. You're going to be looking at Central Virginia. So you don't care that much about like Northern Virginia by DC. You care more about like Abby Spangenberg's district. Now that district was flipped. Like Youngkin, the governor, like Biden won that by 6, and then Youngkin, the Republican governor, won that like last year, right? The last election. Spangenberg, it's a purple district. Spangenberg's a moderate Democrat. Most likely she wins. Like it's most likely that Spangenberg wins, but by how much? So if this is like a 51-49, like if the returns start coming in and Spangenberg doesn't have as big of a lead as she should, maybe a 55-45 type of league, like that means that it's gonna bode well. That's gonna bode well for what the lead is going to be for Vance in Ohio, Johnson in Wisconsin, as well as Walker in Georgia. And then a little bit for Arizona, for what's going to happen in Arizona and Nevada. A little bit. Nevada and Arizona are slightly different from each other. So you're going to be looking in Central Virginia. You want to look at those districts. Another thing on the East Coast that you're going to look for is Central Florida. It's like, well, Central Florida, like DeSantis is going to beat Christ, right, for the governorship. And Rubio is going to destroy Demings. I mean, Rubio is going to whatever. It's just by how much. So what you're looking at in Central Florida is primarily voter turnout in Central Florida. And you're looking primarily in the Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg to Orlando kind of like, and Daytona Beach. I guess it goes all the way up that corridor right there. Inside that corridor in like the Kissimmee area is the Villages, which is the biggest senior like assisted living. It's like 1.5 million seniors live there, and seniors tend to vote Republican. Uh, what is the versus the polling average? You want to look at what the polling average is versus the actual returns. Okay, the polling average is probably going to be somewhere with Rubio there. I mean, very high, but is it above or below? Okay, so if it's above the polling average, that means they're getting a lot more older voter turnout in those districts in Florida, and those districts in Florida are a lot of retirees. Okay, it's very correlated to Arizona, to the suburbs of Phoenix, right? The Scottsdale area in Arizona. Okay, so if you see an outsized Republican older turnout in those central Florida areas, that's going to bode well for Arizona's gubernatorial race with Kari Lake, right? It's going to bode well for Lexalt a little bit in the Nevada Senate race. Means that there's more older people that are coming out, right? Now, if you see that the turnout in Central Florida is lower, where even though Rubio is going to win, right? He's slightly underneath or significantly underneath his polling average. That means more younger voters, even in those older areas, less older voters and more younger voters are coming out, which will bode well for Kelly in Arizona, for Cortez Masto in Nevada, as well as even, in Hobbs, the governorship of Arizona, and the Kari Lake may lose. And also that bodes well a little bit for Georgia as well. Although the Central Florida and Georgia are not all that correlative. It's kind of two different demographics. Okay, so that's what you're kind of looking at, right? Because you're going to look at those districts in Florida, and then you're not betting on the Florida races. You're betting on the Arizona and Nevada races. You're right. You're looking at the Virginia district, and then you're betting on the Ohio, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania, right? If Spangenberg has like a 58, 59% like start returns as precincts start coming in, I'd be hammering Fetterman. I'd be Vance is still going to win, but maybe it's going to be much closer, right? Maybe this is a closer race. Wisconsin, I can't see Mandela Barnes. I think Johnson wins by 5 points, but that's what you kind of looking at, right? So you want to see what correlative districts in the East Coast are more correlative to the West Coast, and the same thing for the Southern Florida stuff. Southern Florida stuff is much more correlative to Nevada. Okay, so if you see Rubio over his polling average in Southern Florida, not Central Florida, but in Southern Florida, because of the Latino vote, that's going to be correlative to the Nevada Senate race. Okay, which means that if Rubio is over his polling average, that means you may get value on Lexalt, on the Republican Senate nominee. Maybe at that point, Lexalt is like plus 130, and you bet maybe he should be minus 130. He should be. But if he's under a polling average, maybe Cortez Masto is minus 130 and should be minus 190. Right? Maybe it's that big of a discrepancy. So this is kind of how you play political betting. And you could also follow there's tons of good pollsters on Twitter. Like Dave Wasserman is a good one, like independent pollsters. That will provide updates, like county by county vote updates. Like it was almost absurd in the 2020 election to see people like claiming this, claiming that on like on my Twitter timeline, and then I look at my political Twitter list on TweetDeck, and it's like people like dude, don't, the sky isn't falling. People like, no, Trump's not beating Biden. Right? Like people like, don't worry. Look at this county. Look at that county. Look at how the voting is done. Look at how it's counted. Like, don't worry about do not worry at all. The sky is not falling, and the betting markets seem to not seem to care whatsoever. So I've been prepared. I've been prepared for this. Let's go in the YouTube chat. If you have any questions about some of this, I mean, I'm not I'm not hardcore. I don't know everything about every race. But I mean, outside of like DFS, I do listen to a lot of political podcasts, right? So I do follow politics to a certain extent. Let's see. So I mean, but this is you're trying to arbitrage. It's very similar to DFS, very similar to prop betting. You're just trying to arbitrage information. You're trying to get value. You're not trying to predict. Like I don't think there's how much value is there in the house like minus 1,800 for to control the house. There may actually be value in that. I think maybe that should be minus 5,000. I don't see a way that the Democrats keep control of the house. So the point is to try to find value. So like right now in the Senate market, like I think if you could get plus 150 on Fetterman now, I think that's he's not a 40% underdog, right? If you could get plus 150 on Fetterman, I think that's good. But I think the better one is like split ticket, uh the number of Senate seats. Like I think that there, if you could find a market on a value of House control seats versus Senate control seats, like I would bet on Republicans plus 20 or above and Democrats even or above, like something like that, because that probably is like plus 600, plus 800, something like that. Because I mean, the House and Senate control market that I'm looking at, where the Republican House and the Democratic Senate is plus like 300 or so, plus 320, right? And I think there's value on that. I think that's better than 3-1. But if I could get even an extra value and get plus 800 on like, House plus 22, plus 20 or something, and Dem even or above, right? Which means 50-50 or 51 or 52 seats. I'm not sure 50. I'm not sure about 52, right? I mean, the Democrats are a dog to keep the Senate also, but they should be just a slight dog, right? But then we have like I see here. I'm looking at my other screen because I'm not going to show offshore books on this show. Democratic House and Democratic Senate control plus 950, and like I don't that should be way higher. That should be way higher, right? Like to keep the House and I mean, obviously, if they keep the House, they keep the Senate, so they are correlated to some extent. Plus 950. Like I don't if you vote blue out there, like they ain't keeping the House. Just a matter by how much are the Republicans gonna take control. I mean, just if you don't even tell me about the candidates, you just like dude, the whoever the sitting president is typically gets the party that's in power in the presidency typically gets kind of not destroyed, but doesn't do well in the midterms. Let's see. Going through the YouTube chat, Barkby says I'm depressing you. Hey, I'm approaching this from a betting standpoint. I'm not here to tell you. I'm not here to be partisan or anything like that. I'm keeping the actual politics out of this. We're just looking at it as if we're betting on passing yard props and running back rushing touchdowns. That's all I'm looking at it. DJ Dog asked about offshore books. Look them up. I'm not going to promote offshore books on RotoGrinders, right? We're promoting betting legally, like on legal regulated books. Because remember, obviously, if you go offshore, like if they screw you over, like you ain't going to court to get that money, right? But there are markets on offshore books. Also understand that a lot of them are not that liquid. Okay, so the limits are not like you're probably not going to be able to go and place like a plus 150 Fetterman bet for like 20 grand. Like that, they just the limit may be $1,000, right? They don't. These are almost vanity markets. These are there for certain people like doing this, so we're going to offer it, and hopefully they also bet on Australian rules football and basketball or whatever the hell it is. But that's really the key. Like I mean, short show today, but I just want to highlight like this is what you do. You look at what districts and what states are correlated to other states, and because of the time zone differences, like you could better predict other states based on early returns, exit polls, as well as early precinct counting from districts in the East Coast, and then that correlates to the Midwest, that correlates to to the West Coast stuff, right? And also realize that in midterm elections, it's much more variance. Now, why is there much more variance in midterm elections than there are in presidential elections? It's because of turnout, right? A lot of people think that we only vote every 4 years, right? Oh, election day is every 4 years. Anytime there's president. Oh, when there's a presidential election, then I'll vote for all the other people, right? Midterm elections typically have less turnout, right? So the margin of error is going to be much higher. Presidential elections, where we get 50% turnout, 55% turnout, you have a much larger sample size, more people. But I mean, sometimes in midterm elections, you get 20% turnout, and who's part of that 20%? Who knows, right? And on the off-year elections, you may even get like 12, 15% turnout. Right here in Kentucky, we voted in a governor, like 6 years ago? We had like 15% turnout. And it's like if 20% people turned out, that guy wouldn't have been elected, right? Just that the right side got the most of the people out to vote, and that's what happens. That's why I say just go out and vote, right? I want the largest sample size possible, even if it doesn't go the way that I want it to go, right? I just think statistically, the more people that go out and vote, the more representative it is for what the American people want. So even if you turn off the show and go to the polls, right? And all these candidates have websites, they have platform positions. If you want to learn about them, it's very easy. There are sites that even break it down easy for you. Like if you're in a certain state, you're in Arkansas and you want to know who's on your ballot, you can typically go to the county clerk's website or your government website, and that you could type in, what your address is, and you could even see you could even see the ballot. Like you could see, oh, this is the ballot, right? And then you could take those names and go, okay, let me go to the candidates' websites. Let me go and see, what they stand for. And you could take 10 minutes to do that and go, okay, that seems good. I'm going to vote for that person. Okay, if you want to be informed like that. Or if you're someone that's like, I can't vote for this party, but only vote for that party, well, go out. You typically fill a ballot and say, I'm voting to, the same party, down ballot, everything, except for the judges, obviously, because they're not part of a party affiliation. So even for the judges, right? If you vote for a district court judge or something like that, like typically these candidates have websites or there are organizations that provide endorsements, and they say, oh, we're the committee of whatever, we represent with some policy position, and they're like, these are the 7 judges that we support, and vote for them, right? So you could look this up. It's not complicated, right? But the more important thing is to just go out, fill out the ballot, whatever way, right? DJ Dog says at the end of the day, vote for whoever you want, right? Vote for whoever you want. Vote for whoever you want, right? But I think it'll be interesting tonight because I think there are going to be a lot of split ticket winners, right? That would be my biggest take. That I suspect that between Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, if you could give me plus 2,000 on 3 split ticket wins, I'd take that. Plus 2,000, give that to me. That would be my like YOLO bet, right? Split ticket meaning that in Arizona, Kelly wins the Senate, but Lake wins the governorship. Then in Pennsylvania, Shapiro wins the governorship, and Oz wins the Senate. And then in Georgia, Kemp wins the governorship, and Warnock wins the Senate. So like you have a Republican governor, Democratic senator, or vice versa, like that out of those 3 races, right? You could add Wisconsin to that also with Evers, but I mean you're not going to add much to because it's Johnson's going to win, right? And Evers probably wins also, and same thing for like Ohio, or like these kind of states. Like you're not going to add like these are a split ticket. Wisconsin is like probably minus 800, right? Evers wins the governorship as a Democrat, and Johnson wins the Senate as a Republican. Like you're not. I'm not sure if there's that much value even on like the plus 600 side on the other side. I don't think so. I think it's a little bit more inevitable. But those 3 races, the Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia races, are like if 2 out of 3 split ticket, like that's probably maybe like plus 250. But 3 of them, because really it comes down to like Kemp's going to beat Stacey Abrams, but it just comes down to Walker Warnock. Oh, there's also another market I saw. Closest Senate race, right? Closest Senate race. There actually is a market for what state will have the closest margin of victory. I think there's value on Pennsylvania plus 500, right? Because currently Georgia's plus 300, that and rightfully so, right? That's probably the closest one. Arizona's plus 400. I think Kelly wins by a larger margin than whoever wins in Pennsylvania or Georgia, right? New Hampshire is plus 500. I mean, if New Hampshire is close, then like none of the other ones are probably close at all, right? If New Hampshire is close, that means most likely Walker beats Warnock by a larger margin than even New Hampshire. So I'm not even sure about that. Wisconsin's plus 800. I think that's a joke. Like if Wisconsin is a close race, like you'll be happy to be a Democrat. If Johnson only beats Barnes by like a point, like dude, like everything else is going to go blue. So like you can root for that if you're rooting Democrats, right? Then they have North Carolina, Ohio plus 1,000. No, Vance is going to beat. It's just the margin of victory, right? I think his polling average is 5 points now. Like if he'll beat him by 2, and that'll be good for Democrats in the rest of the country. But I don't see Ryan beating Vance. I'd love to see it personally, but I don't think it happens. So if I would, the closest race, I could see Warnock beating Walker by 3 or 4 points, even with Kemp winning the governorship. So it's quite possible that Pennsylvania ends up being the closest race between Oz and Fetterman at plus 500. Not that I think Georgia and Pennsylvania are closer. Like people think Georgia, but I think maybe there's value plus 500 on Pennsylvania, right? So that's what I would be looking at. Cobra Kai is back, says Blender. I was a 6v6 from winning the Powerball this morning. Oh well, $4 down the drain for my 2 tickets. You were 6v6 away from winning the Powerball. There's only 6 numbers, by the way. That's why it's a joke. Thank you for the joke in the morning, right? Only a 6v6. If I only got all 6 of the numbers right instead of all 6 of the numbers wrong, no, it would have been so much better if you said a 2v2, right? You got 4 numbers right. It's 2v2 away from the Powerball. Did anyone win? I don't know. It's quite possible no one won it again. Didn't like Sean Deeb, aren't a bunch of poker players buying up like God knows how many tickets for that? Or something like that, right? It's like one of the only plus EV lotteries, right? It's like 262 million to 1 to win, but it's a 1 point whatever billion. Like the cash payout is 780 million or something like that. So it's technically it's plus EV to play the Powerball, right? Of course, it's going to take you by the time you realize that EV, I think the sun explodes in some type of like supernova. Like you have to live that many lifetimes. Okay, so give me some thumbs on your way out the door. This is kind of a little special episode, especially when there's no NBA today. There's nothing going on today in DFS. There's nothing. What props? What is there anything? Is there any sports going on today? Is there anything? That's all I'm going to be doing tonight is looking at the midterms. Also, because there's nothing going on, I'm also doing a coaching call as part of our premium Discord here at RotoGrinders. So sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. Click on the link in the description. Get $10 off your first month of Combo Premium. Join the Discord. And I do these Zoom coaching calls like 2 or 3 times a month. They're typically very good conversations. We share our screens. We talk through things. Very, very sharp conversations with a lot of people. So join in, join the Discord, find the Blenders Game Theory channel. It's only available to premium members, and sign up for my alerts there, and you'll always get an alert when 5 minutes before our coaching call and when I schedule new ones. And I post a link to the Zoom or whatever, 5 minutes before 6 tonight. It's at 6 o'clock Eastern tonight, and we'll talk some DFS strategy. And give you any personalized, individualized attention. Typically, it's very small groups, 8, 10, 12 people. So join in tonight, and then we could all watch the election results. I'll watch the election results, and hopefully that's why, like, once 8 o'clock comes around, I'll be on my phone, trying to get bets in, seeing. I typically leave my computer screen up and start looking at, like, precinct counts in certain areas, and then on the other screen I have what the offshore markets look like, and then I also have, like, my Twitter DMs open, and I have a group of people that bet I bet politics with, right? A lot of times it's partisan people. That's what I love the most. People that bet emotionally, right? So yeah, I'll be doing that tonight. Okay. Anything else in the YouTube chat before we get out of here? Nope, other than Devin saying thanks for tuning in, everyone. And don't forget to get out and vote. Go out and vote, and go out and give me the thummy thumbs. Go out and vote, and I will see you tomorrow. Right? Probably talking about the NBA slate, right? Because there actually be stuff going on, and answering your DFS strategy questions like I always do on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.